Hi, Pat the Podcast Editor here. What can you do to make your marketing stand out in a world where everyone is competing for your customers' attention? Well, today, Dan and Lloyd discuss their unique approach to unscalable marketing and show you how to form deeper connections with your ideal customers.
If you are strengthening relationship by going above and beyond and doing something nice for people, those things over time build and make it more likely that you're going to do business with people.
We also compare long and short-term mindset and give examples of how over time these strategies can pay off.
One of the people we sent the weird wig packages to worked for another company, moved companies, and then got in touch with us and said, you sent me a weird wig 6 months ago, and now I've worked for a new company. I'm in a position to work with you. And we're just starting that project now.
Right, let's get stuck in. This is episode 90 of the Business Anchors podcast.
We're just a couple of business anchors. Welcome to the Business Anchors podcast. This jingle is slightly too long. This jingle is slightly too long.
What is unscalable marketing and why are we talking about it, Dan?
Unscalable marketing is all
marketing that's unscalable.
No, not quite.
Okay.
It's all about doing the things that don't necessarily seem efficient or scalable when it comes to marketing, but they're incredibly important because of the impact they have.
Okay.
Now, I know that's maybe not that easy to understand without examples, so I've got loads of examples.
Okay.
Can I give you one from recently?
You go straight in with an example.
Okay, well, do you want to? We can go in slower if you want.
No. I feel comfortable.
Okay.
Thought you might just wine and dine me a bit before you got straight into the example.
I want to share an example. So one example is from our accountants recently. We love talking about accountants on this podcast for some reason.
Yeah.
You know, we recently did that episode about tax savings.
I do, yes. That went down very well.
It went down very well. We got like 30,000 views on a TikTok about that, which is quite good. But we did an episode about how you can about tax planning based on the advice we'd got from our accountants. Mm-hmm. And we did that, and without us knowing, in the post the other day, we received this big package, and we're like, oh, what's this? Mm-hmm. Opened it, and it was like a thank you goodies box thing.
A what?
Well, like
a thank you goodies box.
A box with loads of good stuff in.
Yeah, or if you were a child, you describe it as a thank you goodies box.
And so that was really nice of them. They, without knowing, they sort of sent that thank you gift. And that's just one of the small things that they've done for us that I think means that they're probably going to be our accountants forever, on top of them being good accountants. Yeah. Those small things that aren't scalable. Like, they couldn't send out 1,000 of those things because it wouldn't probably be scalable or efficient but it's something that they've done that builds a deeper relationship with us as customers. Yeah. And that's one example. I've got loads, but that's something that happened recently.
Just to be clear for the context, guys, so they sent it and sent a note kind of saying, oh, thank you for mentioning us on the podcast. So they were grateful that we, because when we spoke about the advice and we just said, oh, Telford's accountants are brilliant, get in touch with them if you need an accountant. And so they were saying thank you, really. But it's that, I think it's the going like above and beyond what's expected that makes you really appreciate it and think, what a lovely thing to do, and have that really positive impact on a relationship, I guess.
Yeah. And like another thing that happened recently, that it feels weird. There's been loads of these things happen recently. So I recently did a masterclass with the two Lauras who have like a membership community, and two really nice ladies who we met in San Diego. I did a free masterclass thing with them, and they sent through a chocolate which had a message on it and stuff, and a handwritten note. And it like just got me thinking recently. Quite a few things have happened, and there's these small things that people have been doing that have had a genuine positive impact on my perception of them. And it got me thinking, like, we do certain things, we do similar things, but I think not enough businesses, companies, marketers think about doing these unscalable activities because there's so much pressure on, you've only got this amount of budget to spend, you've only got this amount of resource. But I think we should be thinking about this more, and I'm hoping this episode inspires marketers and anchors to start doing more of this kind of thing.
You described it as unscalable marketing, but those two things, so they were people sort of going the extra mile and sending things to say thank you or to. So would you count that as marketing then?
Yes. I think anything where you're doing something to get in front of or build a relationship with your audience is marketing. And so
I would agree with that. Yeah. I think it's straight. When I first thought of it, I thought, is that, sending a gift to someone, because that's what a couple of those examples were. Is that marketing? But the reality is, if you are strengthening relationship by going above and beyond and doing something nice for people, and those things over time build and make it more likely that you're going to do business with people, basically. Or if you're not in a business context, make it more likely that you'll have a longer, stronger relationship with them.
Yeah. Have you read The Thank You Economy, Gary Vee's book?
Yes, years ago, but yes.
If anyone's listening or watching and wants to learn more about this, that's like when I was preparing for this episode, that was a book that reminded me of the importance of going the extra mile for customers. Like in that book, Gary Vee talks about a whole range of examples when he worked at Wine Library for going the extra mile with customers and how that builds a brand like that people actually care about. Because there's all these things with technology coming in. There's so many things that you can do to scale up through automation. Like there's loads of tools out there where you can automatically reply to people, automatically comment and send messages. Whereas that's not building a depth in terms of relationships. Whereas when you do this kind of thing and go the extra mile, it really does help strengthen those relationships. And it's an important part of your marketing strategy.
It's interesting because we've always steered away in our business from automation that other businesses have really sort of valued in being able to do more with their marketing and their communication. And it seems to have been a theme that has just always, I don't know why we've been so different with our approach and kind of doing these things that take more time and effort and don't necessarily look like they make sense in the short term.
Do you know, I think I know why.
Okay.
Personally,
Tell
for me, I think this whole thing we've spoken about before of like lazy selling and lazy marketing, where people like the perfect description of this is like cold calling, where someone makes zero effort, a bad cold call, let's call it a bad cold call. Someone makes zero effort to understand who you are, what you need. They just call you up and say, hey, can I speak to you for 3 minutes about this thing? I think through experiencing a lot of that over the last few years, it's made me want to be the opposite of that. Like do the things that actually where you're making an effort to take time to genuinely build relationships. There's so many people out there, marketers and influencers and people that are selling courses that are like, yeah, just do all this good stuff and like automate this stuff. But really, from our experience of growing this business, the things that, and I really want to share some specific examples for our business to show you how we've done this. The things that we've done when we have gone the extra mile are the things that have actually generated the greatest return on investment for our business.
It's also the long-term versus short-term thinking. So a lot of those automated things you can do, the really scalable stuff. Oh, I can just put this into this tool and then it will send this email to 1,000 people. In the short term, that genuinely, I think, could be more beneficial than some of the things that we've done that have taken a much more personal, have a more personal touch and have taken much more of our resources. But in the long term, I think it always pays off. I guess short-term sacrifice in everything in life usually pays off in the long term. So it takes more effort in the short term to have these kind of unscalable things that you're doing. And in the short term, it's like, oh, that's annoying. It's taking more resources. It's cost more, whatever. But in the long term, it always seems to pay off. It's just like in the short term, it's rubbish to go to the gym every day and it takes effort. In the long term, you're like, oh, I've got abs. Obviously not me, but maybe me in the future.
To try and provide some value for the listeners and to try and inspire them for things they can do, can I share some specific examples of things we've done and the results it's achieved?
Yeah, because I think this will be interesting for listeners. Rather than us being like, yeah, you should do this. It's so much nicer doing these unscalable things that you put effort in. Actually hearing things and hearing the benefits that we get in the long term.
These are measurable things.
Real stuff.
Okay,
Real example coming your way.
So, one thing. Building a solid relationship with Andrew and Pete. For those that don't know, Andrew and Pete are two marketers from Newcastle that we met years ago. I think they wrote an article for Social Media Examiner and I shared it and tagged them and said, this is a great article years ago.
You could have automated that.
I could have automated that, but that's not part of this explanation. But anyway, so we met them. We went to one of their events. We really got on well.
Yep.
And over the last few years, we've been supporting them by attending all and helping them promote their events. Going up and meeting them and hanging out together. And we've, spent quite a lot of time together over the years.
Yeah.
Now we didn't just do that with this strategy in mind that that's going to be beneficial to us.
We do genuinely like them.
Like them, which is, again,
Pete.
it needs to be authentic. I think that's another key thing.
Yeah.
But from that relationship, so one example of something that's been really valuable to us, they used to do a lot of public speaking, and because they got lots of opportunities to speak, more than we ever did, whenever they had opportunities they couldn't do because they had another speaking event, they would recommend that I would go and speak at those. And that I think we went to Lithuania and UK with me, Supernova, that event, that was one of them. They also helped us get a speaking slot at Social Media Marketing World in San Diego. Another thing, they also put us in touch with a training company in Dubai to go and deliver strategic training with some of the biggest brands in the world, like FIFA, Nestle, FIFA, Nestle, Citibank, Boston Consulting Group. So there's all these things that have happened from us nurturing and building that relationship and going up to Newcastle and seeing them, and that's just one example of many.
It's interesting with that relationship with Andrew and Pete, who run Atomic. So both ways, we've really helped each other both ways over the years and gone the extra mile to support each other with various things. And I feel like it's really paid off for both sides. If we were just thinking short term, Andrew and Pete with those speaking things, they could have thought, well, we could try and get a commission and hand this off to someone and see if we can make some money. But they were just being genuine and supportive with those kind of actions. And I think, it really paid off for both sides, putting the extra effort in for a number of years, actually, which if you looked at it just of how productive is my time, us going up to Newcastle a few times and supporting their events whenever we could, you could look at that and go, that's a huge amount of time to put in, all that travel and stuff, when you could be doing really good stuff to sell stuff in your business in the short term.
Yeah, definitely. I think don't undervalue those trips and those the time you spend building those relationships. And
bonus, doing stuff like that.
It's actually fun.
We got a lovely relationship and friendship with them and did a lot of fun stuff. So,
so I guess really that could come under the theme of building partnerships or relationships with other people in your industry. Is that kind of a good description of that?
Yeah. And taking the time to build relationships, not just be that superficial kind of fake, oh yeah, God, I love what you do and I'll really support you.
Another example, something that happened recently. So for those really loyal listeners, you may have noticed this. So recently, we stopped sharing the whole video episodes on YouTube. What we used to do is we'd still film this whole episode, but we used to share the whole video episode on YouTube. And we stopped doing that recently because it took a lot of time to edit and there wasn't that many people watching the whole video. Most people were listening to the full podcast or watching the shorter clips. So we wanted to use that extra resource that we saved to create more kind of TikTok promo videos and the things that are working well moving forward. Now, one of the things that with the full YouTube videos is it had an auto captioning feature. So anyone who needed to read the captions, if they were hard of hearing or impaired in some way, they could watch the YouTube video and the auto captions for the whole episode would come up. Now, when we stopped doing that, we got a message from a lovely business anchor, Jeremy. Hi, Jeremy. I know you're reading this. Who said, now that we've stopped doing that, he can't consume the podcast because he can't see the auto captions. So we wanted to make this accessible to everyone. So this definitely isn't an efficient use of our time.
This is definitely isn't an efficient use.
I'm trying to think how to word this. So we basically now write up all of these podcast episodes and create a blog on our website where it's written up with notes, and it takes loads of time. And initially, it doesn't seem an efficient way of using our time, but it means it's accessible to people who need to read the podcast rather than listen to it. And Jeremy, we did that. I didn't think anything of it. And Jeremy did a lovely post saying how it had really he was happy basically because he could still be a loyal business anchor.
And thanking our team for the effort
our team
of doing that whole process. Yeah.
And it did make Yasmin from our team cry. Good tears.
Yeah.
But it just made, like, getting that message just made it worthwhile. And I think knowing that we're making this accessible to everyone is a bigger positive than knowing that, we could save time and not do that.
I think, again, though, some of those decisions that in the short term a purely business, financial driven decision, it doesn't make any sense to do that. And which is why I think a lot of businesses don't do this sort of stuff. It doesn't make logical sense in the short term financially. We're using our team's time for something that doesn't bring the business money in. But I'm so confident from all of these examples and our previous experience that doing the right thing and making that extra effort in the long term always pays off somehow.
Yeah. I've got more examples, but do you have anything that any kind of examples or things that you think are unscalable marketing that...
Well, my main example, I don't know if you were going to mention it, the main thing I was going to talk about is when we sent wig parcels to people. This was an amazing test and had a really good return. I guess you can go into the details, but something unscalable. We went through a phase where a lot of our content, we were wearing wigs and making funny videos, and we kind of got a reputation of, you do the videos on LinkedIn in the wigs. And so the people that were really engaging, we sent in the post a parcel with a wig and a note kind of saying, like, thank you for your support. If you ever want to talk to us about working with us or whatever, let us know. Now, obviously, the time and effort to firstly, you were like sourcing good value wigs, putting all the packages together, writing the note, getting everyone's addresses and stuff, sending them off, all that stuff. Hugely inefficient rather than like sending a sales email to them or sending them a direct message on DM saying, hey, do you want to work with us? But we just felt we wanted to have a test of, if we actually go to the effort and actually do something different that's going to get noticed and take more time, will it pay off? And I don't know, Dan, you'll probably be in a better position to let us know the return on that investment.
I am, Lloyd.
Have you actually got the...
Yeah.
Okay.
So, actually, if listeners want to know an in-depth insight into that strategy and how it worked, go and listen to episode 21, the weird marketing strategy that generated 10x ROI, which we produced, obviously, was that 60-something episodes ago? So that was quite a while ago. Since then... I'm not going to mention the project. We recently converted another project who one of the people we sent the weird wig packages to worked for another company, moved companies, and then got in touch with us and said, you sent me a weird wig 6 months ago, and now I've worked for a new company. I'm in a position to work with you. And we're just starting that project now. So it's more than 10x'd the time and resource we put into that. The return in terms of the value, the revenue value, has been really worthwhile.
That's just the perfect example of what we're saying. So even if we sent those parcels out and we had no instant sales, which we did, if I assume we said 10x.
We booked in a strategy session. Yeah.
So 10x the time and resources. So even if we got nothing immediately, most businesses would have thought, that was a failure. Why did we go to the effort to do that? And then it takes someone was in a job where they thought, actually, in my current role, there's not going to be opportunity to work with you. Nothing happened. They get a new job, and then 6 months down the line, then you convert that sale. I think that's exactly what I'm talking about, the long-term effects, how it always works out long-term if you take the time and put the extra effort in the short term.
Another example is this podcast. Literally for the first year, like there's a lot of resource. You know, there's the team that are shooting this. There's the time to edit it. There's the time we prep. There's a lot of time that goes into this podcast. And for a year, we didn't make any money. Or I think we made a very tiny amount of money that made it a huge loss. And we had to wait a year of doing this consistently to finally... are you laughing because I said we're?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
To finally, after a year, we booked in like a 6-figure contract that made it all worthwhile. And we've since, you know, at least 50 to 70% of our new business mentions that they listen to the podcast now. So it's one of those things, it's just a reminder for all marketers, all business owners listening. You need to do things consistently over time to gauge if something is working or not. Don't just do it once and be like, oh, I didn't get an instant client. I guess one question, Lloyd, how do you know when is the time to stop trying something that, because you know, like we've waited a year to get any results from this.
Yeah.
What if something's really terrible? And
well, I think with something like the podcast, we could monitor things that weren't income to show that it was worthwhile. We could see the engagement online of people speaking more and more positively about us and what we're saying and what we're doing. So there's things like that kind of those positive signs that make you think, oh, okay. Things like sending the wig parcels, I have to admit, that's a harder one. Like you just have to go, well, maybe this will work in a bit. And if it doesn't, but then that gives you the confidence. I'd now be confident, say if we had some kind of weird theme on this podcast, it's like, oh, they always eat kiwis or something. Okay. I'd be confident if we sent out a load of kiwis to our biggest listeners with a lovely note, it would probably get a return on investment for that time because we've done it in the past.
Just sending kiwis in the post. Well, this is why I handle our marketing, Lloyd.
Well, no, not. I was trying to think of something. I don't know. Or not kiwis. We won't send any because the logistics of sending perishable food items.
Well, this is also right. So you've made me think of something else now. So the reason that's a terrible idea,
Thank you.
We actually had a company that just sent us cheese in the post.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Warm cheese.
Over a period of weeks. And we were like, someone keeps sending us cheese. And at the end, they were like, we're a new IT telecoms company. Do you want to work with us? We've sent you cheese. And we're like, no, we don't, thanks.
That was strange, wasn't it?
But I do appreciate the creativity a bit, but it's sort of like,
when you don't need the services and you've just got warm cheese.
It's not really a good combination.
Strange. But then they might have got a good return on that.
They might have done, yes. Well, I mean, it had no impact on me deciding that they were a good company to work with by just sending cheese in the post. But
if anything, it made me think, if you can't handle the logistics of keeping cheese cool in the process of getting delivered, you know, how are you going to keep cool when I have an IT emergency?
Oh, wow, that is cringe. Oh, dear. One more example from me. I've been Mr. Example this episode. Before we get into some more practical stuff. So Agencynomics. We've done a Business Anchors podcast episode on Agencynomics, which is a brilliant book. If you run an agency or you're in the marketing world or you run a business, definitely go and read Agencynomics by Spencer and Pete. Two guys that used to have an agency and they sold it and now they help other agencies. We read their book and then did a podcast episode on it. And then we went to one of their events and we've since kind of built and nurtured that relationship over time. We've put quite a lot of time in producing content about them, going to meet them, attending their events, and we actually
drinking champagne in their house.
Drinking champagne in one of their houses. Yeah, that was
tough.
That just a quick backstory on that. That was a weird one because we were basically going to an event they were running, and then we were invited. It was one of their birthdays and we were invited back to their house, and we thought it might just be one of those things where it's like, oh, we better invite them because we didn't really know them that well, did we? And then we just ended up in their house and it was really good in the end.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, weird tangent there.
But anyway, so that's another unscalable thing we've done, building the relationship with them, and we actually got mentioned in their recent book. That's one thing that's happened because of that.
In a good way?
In a good way, yeah. They said how brilliant we were and how creative we were.
So now, in the long term, people are going to read that and someone's going to go, oh, I want to speak to them about giving them loads of money to do something really good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're actually, I don't know how much we can talk about this. We're not going to give too much away, but we're potentially going to be hosting some kind of event thing in the future, but we can't talk about that.
So we've given lots of examples of like positive outcomes we've had in the long term when we've done unscalable things that have taken more resources that seem to make sense in the short term. If people are listening thinking, well, what can I do? What steps should people take to take on this kind of strategy?
It feels weird, like giving steps for how to like build real life relationships and stuff, because should sort of just happen. But
feels weird,
but to make this structured, one, I would write a list of all the people who you want to build deeper relationships with, or who have supported your business, or potential customers you want to work with and build relationships with. Write a list of all those people. Then prioritize them in terms of who are the most important people you want to build a relationship with. And then literally set actions to do something unscalable for them. That could be, what could that be, Lloyd? That could be, booking a ticket for the event they're running and going there and supporting them. It could be writing a handwritten thing like we did with weird wig packages. And
I think anything that shows that you're putting time and effort into the relationship, basically. And not annoying thing, like don't send them cheese every day going, look at the effort I'm making, like something that hopefully they will value.
Or kiwis.
Like we were sending the wigs because we thought it would make people laugh, like they're like commenting on our videos like, oh, I love those wigs, and then we're sending them, we thought they'll probably laugh at this, so that'll be but yeah, anything that just shows you're making an effort and that relationship is valuable to you, I think. That would be my
go and do that stuff. Is there anything else that you think would be valuable to add to the conversation, Lloyd? Anything around unscalable marketing that will be useful to listeners?
I think just the summary that always think of the long term whenever you possibly can, unless there's a bill you need to pay in like 2 hours, and so you have to just think of short-term income over time. Yeah, I said that weird. Dan, stop laughing at me. It's always paid. Our long-term strategies have always paid off for us. You're still laughing because I can't tell. Income. So I'd say any decision you're making, try and do that. Like make the extra effort in the short term. Like I said, almost anything in life seems to be this way. Put the extra effort in the short term and it's going to pay off in the long term.
Yeah. So actually take action. What are you going to do after listening to this episode to build a deeper relationship with someone who you want to build a deeper relationship with? Do that thing. Send them that handwritten note with a chocolate bar in. Go and book a ticket to their event. Do it now, and you genuinely will see and it's just a nice thing to do. Like you're being a good person as well.
They probably like melted chocolate bars in the post. It's a good thing to do.
So yeah, cool. We've got a really interesting episode coming up next, which is all about how to generate predictable revenue, which I think is probably going to be the most valuable episode we've ever produced.
As well. Next week's episode, it's like basically gave us a magical power to predict revenue in the future and know exactly how much money our business is going to bring in. Magical. Listen to that in a bit. Or if you've listened to this late, probably already live. So go there now.
See you next week.
Bye.